All right, so let's go over the markets. Gerald, you ready to go? Okay, all right, gold. So what we do in the room is we have only 3 setups we concentrate in the room. Very, very simple. The methodology is very simple to understand. Anybody can understand how to do it. And what we like to do, sorry, there we go. What we like to do is we like to look at the 5-minute moving averages first. That's a first order of business. It's the first thing we do. We don't look at anything else. JaySignal doesn't mean anything. Market profile doesn't mean anything. So we look at these 2 moving averages. The moving averages were crossed down on gold this morning. So then we're going to use our levels off the 2 5-minute chart. Here's my 5-minute chart. Here's my 5-minute chart to play off of. If the market's in a downtrend, then I still have the first test of the red dots for number 1 trade. If the market's too weak, it'll come down to my green dots on both charts, which tells me what the order flow is. We don't buy the green dots. We let it break. We let it retest the dots, which it did, and there's my number 3 trade on both charts. It hit exactly on the number 3 chart. The number 3 trade was a retest of my LVA for the continuation. Now, you can use for entry, you can use my JaySignal chart right here. This works on your own Ninja chart. And I wanted to make sure that we understand how to use it this morning. I have it in the room. And what we do is I've got over, I believe it's around 18 markets trading on this thing. It works on all markets the same way. I gave you unique settings to find these inflection points. If you look right here, the arrow will automatically pop up and there's a possible trend change. And then you can see right here that we had a buy pullback that caught the low. Let's Fibonacci dot online. Here's a 20. Here's a 50. This is a 5-minute trend filter. So it lets me know that I want to take trades with overall trend direction. So the trades today, this morning, that just happened a second ago, you can't miss a trade like this. It's not possible for you to miss a trade like this because that's your sell signal right there. Because what happens is my 5-minute trend filter is down. There's my 50. There's my 20 on JaySignal. And right here is a trend change on JaySignal. So I look for the retracement trade, and I look for what's called a bullseye trade. What is a bullseye trade? It's a very simple setup. A bullseye trade, what a bullseye trade is a yellow dot right on top or within 1 bar of the Fibonacci dot. There it is. Okay? So what you do is the 5-minute mark was in a downtrend. What JaySignal does is how you want to use it correctly is like I said in the conference call, and how I give you the exact settings how to use it, is look, you just look to sell the first retracement. All right, so what you want to do, guys and gals, the moving averages were in a downtrend here. Moving average in a downtrend. I had 1345 up here also. Let me show you how you combine both of these charts. This is the JaySignal that works on your own charts. So what happens is that the 2 sim works good with the 3 sim because it gives you the fib dots are really active. And what happens, the bullseye trade was right here at the high, and you don't get a red bar reversal in your 3 sim, so right at 1345 to catch the high on gold. So they really work really good together because the fib dot will tell you if it's against overall trend direction, meaning if the JaySignal is above the black line and you're looking for just a bullseye short, you want to time it with the 3 sim Reiko. Right there is your fib dot, and then there is your overall reversal bar to catch the high on gold at market profile 1345. So you can use both in combination with each other to get that. If you want to use standalone, you can only go with trend on the 2 sim Reiko. What that means is this: if I'm trending up, I have no bullseye dot to buy on this signal right here. There is no buy signal on this at all. There's no buy signal. Okay? In other words, if you use this by itself, then you can only trade it this way. Meaning you can only go with the overall trend direction. 5-minute was down. There's your triangle. There's your bullseye dot, right? So you can use it as a standalone or both. For example, let's look at earlier gold trade this morning at 7 o'clock. I mean, this indicator is dynamic if you know what you're doing. There's a trend change. There's the exact line of sand. Buy, there's a bullseye trade caught the exact low on gold at 714. Market explodes. Bullseye trade caught the exact low. For you morning traders, for you morning traders, you traders that trade at 6 p.m. at night, getting back in the market, nighttime trading, when the market's a little bit slow, but these dots are just phenomenal. And here we go again, caught the bullseye again, 3 for 3 to trend. So when you're doing trend trades, it works really good. Okay, so there is a trend change with the overall signal. So the system can be used standalone. Okay, it can be used standalone, where if you do standalone though, you got to go with the overall triangle signal if you're going to take the counters or with trend. You can't go against it. Okay, meaning if the market's in a hard uptrend, you can only go against it if there's room support or resistance. Right? And you got to use a 3-cent Renko to get in those trades with room support or resistance. If you use this thing by yourself and just use a 2-cent with entries, you got to go with the overall triangle trend, or you're going to get beat up. So this sell signal was with 5-minute trend. Here's your ultimate signal. Okay? Here's the ultimate signal. Right here is the trend change. There's a trend change. This is against overall 5-minute trend, so those you want to avoid. All right, and then when you come to a top like this, when you come to the top at 831, when you come to the top, when you reach market profile, then you can use it as a fib influence for a bullseye to enter the trade. Oops. So let me go to the signals real quick, just make sure we understand. Beautiful number 1 top. Let's go back a little bit so we understand how to do this. Started at 6 a.m. this morning. So the best trades are with trend or with a triangle trend direction. Triangle trend direction would be your first dots on pullback. The first triangle, the first dot pullback. All right. As we move forward, your first dots are going to be the key. If your first dot doesn't matter. The best are with trend though. There's your first dot. First dots are key on taking trades. Okay, so when you do this, guys, again, that's the best way to do it. Now, if you look at the JaySignal, is that when they both line up, though, here's the larger moving average with the smaller, then what we want to do is if the triangle change is red, we look to take the bullseye trade. The bullseye trade is a yellow dot right with the fib dot. Okay, with trend direction. Okay, very, very simple. So the market's in a downtrend, right? The 5-minute moving average are still down, so you don't take trades like this. This is not a setup. You don't take a trade like this on a little trend change. It's against 5-minute trend. You don't take a setup like that. You take a setup like this. You take a setup like this because it's with 5-minute trend direction when using a smaller time frame chart. Those are the trades you want to take. Bullseye trades with overall trend direction. That's the best way to do it. Okay? With overall 5-minute trend direction. So that's the easy way to do it. Now, if you look at Gerald, if you go on oil, oil's the same way. Oil, you work it the same way. If you look at the trend change on oil with 5-minute trend, there is your triangle trend change on JaySignal. The moving averages are up already, so you're only going to take buys. We're not going to take sells. And we wait, we ignore all red dots. These red dots mean nothing to me because I'm not selling, I'm not counter trend trading the market. Okay? There's your buy signal right there. So if you're going to buy it on a dip, you'd buy it with a bullseye trade on the pullback. Now, it works really good off support and resistance. So if you look at 8 o'clock when LVA was hit, 8 o'clock this morning, that's the only time on number 1 trade you can be against the overall JaySignal. So this number 1 is a bullseye trade that lines up with 97.13 buy. So when I come into number 1 trades, which are buying the green and with a 5-minute and an uptrend, I just look for my JaySignal, fire me a bullseye, caught the exact low. And this is how you trade the room versus trading it standalone. So when you come down into the green support, moving averages up, my number 1 trade in the room says I buy either green dots on both charts. When I get a bullseye trade right there, called the exact low in the market. Look how it times the trade on the way down though. Because when you're coming down to it, it's going to help you time the trade. And help you time the trade right at the low. So it can be against overall JaySignal trend. But if you don't have market profile on other markets, you have to trade right here. You got to trade at the overall triangle direction. You have to. And go with the fib dots as far as that goes. Because that's going to give you your overall solid signals. So when you're trading this like this, by itself, and here the market is in an uptrend, all right, there's your buy signal all by itself. All right, there's your bullseye buy signal all by itself. All right, so those are the signals you can get by itself. We're good to go. So just make sure you do that. I have another trade I go over. It's called the 5-minute moving average crossover. 5-minute moving average crossovers are very explosive trades. If you see your 5-minute crossover, your trend filter, you take the first buy signal you get, and look at that explosion you get in the market. So that's another setup that I do with JaySignal. Look at that explosion that we get in the market. And it was the first buy bullseye after the 5-minute moving average crossed over. We went over this in the conference call last night. I mean, look at that trade. Gorgeous. You see that all the time in all markets. So if you have this in other markets and trade in other markets, and the moving average crosses over, there's your buy signal to go long, right there. Because you had a trend change where the 20 crosses to the 50. I look for a pullback on a bullseye trade, and there we go. Okay? The room trend, if you're trading in all markets, you got to go with the overall triangle direction, Joe, with 5-minute trend direction. If you're trading the room, you can trade both the triangle trend direction and the off room support or resistance. All I do on support or resistance, Joe, I don't care what the market does on number one trades, what JaySignal's doing on number one trades. It doesn't matter to me because I'm looking to be a buyer, right? At LVA at 97.13 makes sense. So I want my JaySignal to fire a bullseye right at 97.13, and it can be against the overall black line. Okay, let's go on oil, Gerald. Oil, what I'm going to show you real quick, make sure we understand this, is on the JaySignal is this. It's called the 5-minute moving average trend filter crossover trade. When you have the JaySignal, there's an automated 5-minute moving averages that are overlaid on your JaySignal right here. They first cross down right here, first cross down right there below each other. I tell you, I teach you and educate you that you want to take the first bullseye trade into resistance. This is a sell already on my black line called the line in the sand trade. If you test this black line, you look for a bullseye trade to get short on the first test. The first test short, that's already a setup by itself. When these moving averages cross down, it's called a 5-minute moving average crossover. This works on all markets. I can typically catch the swing high or swing low in the morning. And I'm talking 60, 70, 100 tick trades. We do it all the time in gold and oil. So there's the moving average cross down. There's your first sell bullseye. Bullseye is a red Fibonacci dot on Lincoln plots with a yellow dot in the middle. That's your exact sell high in the morning session with crude oil right here. And that's how we do it. It's called a 5-minute moving average crossover short. Why does it work? Because all these novice traders that trade moving averages are worthless. Whoever teaches you to trade moving averages do not know how to trade the market, because I tell you, moving averages are lagging. If they cross down and all these retail traders are going short, the professionals will take the high out and stop them out. All these stops got taken out when the swing high got taken out. So whoever trades off moving averages, if your neighbor does or somebody else, you better educate them how to trade, because moving averages, I train hundreds, if not thousands of traders, and I've never seen one trader with moving averages make money. Not one. Not one. Moving averages are worthless because you don't know which one they're going to stop at. It's going to stop at the 13, 34, 55, 200-day moving average, 550 moving average. You don't know which one it's going to stop at. What we can do is time the trade on preying off these novice moving average traders. If the moving average crosses down, then we're going to look to sell the first bullseye trade on the retracement of resistance. And I've been educating this in JaySignal since I came out with it. There it is. JaySignal calls the exact high into my line of sand. This black line tells me when the market gets back into balance. It's back into balance. There's your yellow dot to call the high. That's called the 5-minute moving average crossover trade. Take the first bullseye short into resistance. Okay, so the QM, guys and gals. When we look at the QM, if you are an oil trader, you can use the JaySignal with the QM. I use a 2-sim Renko. The settings are 5.5 multiplier. And what I like to do is this. I like it to confirm with the room trade. In other words, the moving averages are up today. I'm looking to buy a number one trade down here at 8 o'clock on the LVA first test. There's where conflude on my bullseye, where my arrow's at. Right there, okay? You can use the last video Gerald just did was a 5-minute moving average crossover. You can do the same thing on the QM. There's my 5-minute trend filter crossover. There's my first bullseye trade, caught the exact low, and oil and QM exploded. If you look at my MP levels at 97.61. Call the high on the QM over here. Look at the low, 97.04. Call the low over here on the recent low. Look at the bullseyes, how it's called the tops and bottoms on the QM. You can use that with overall signals in the room because the QM will help you with overall where the major runner could possibly step in the crude market. Look at these signals. So this is already a line in the sand trade according to the JaySignal. This black line that comes on the JaySignal, when you come back in any market to the black line, the market becomes back in balance. The market always gets out of balance, and this black line, when it comes back to it, tells you when it becomes back in balance. Look for trades to react off of that in all markets. Look for bullseye trades. They're yellow dots over top the blue and red dots for your entry. That confirms divergence with the blue or red dots. The bottom line, you can see the QM with the overall 5-minute market structure. CL calls a high, QM calls a high. CL calls a low, QM calls a low. CL's low is the QM's low. Use the QM with the CL with my setting. You're going to find yourself into some dynamic trades.